a poor maid, a billionaire's mansion, and one decision that shook everyone. She stole the billionaire's money, but not for greed, to save her dying daughter's life. The real question is, when the billionaire found out the truth, what did he do? What happened next? Left the whole world in shock. The mansion was silent, except for the ticking of the grand clock in the hallway. Soft light poured through the tall glass windows, reflecting on the polished marble floors. Maria, the maid, stood trembling, her heart pounding like a drum in her chest. She held the envelope in her hands, thick with money, the billionaire's money. Her fingers shook as she clutched it tighter. Hearing the faint echo of footsteps behind her, her daughter's face filled her mind, pale, fragile, breathing weakly on the hospital bed. The doctors had said only one thing could save her, treatment that cost more than Maria could ever imagine. She glanced at the chandelier above, its crystals shimmering like frozen tears. Her reflection in the glass doors stared back at her, filled with fear and guilt. The weight of the envelope felt heavier with each passing second, as if the paper itself was alive with shame. Then a deep voice filled the air. Maria. Her whole body froze. The billionaire stood at the edge of the corridor, his tall figure casting a shadow across the white walls. His eyes were sharp, unblinking, fixed on the envelope in her hands. Her breath caught in her throat, her lips trembling as she whispered, I am sorry." Her knees buckled, and she dropped to the floor, clutching the money against her chest. Tears blurred her vision as she begged, "Please, my daughter. She will not live without this." The silence that followed was unbearable. Every second, stretched, heavy, suffocating. She could hear the faint hum of the fountain outside, the rustle of leaves against the glass, and her own desperate sobs. Then, slowly, he walked closer. Each step echoed like thunder in the quiet hall. Maria could not lift her eyes. She waited for anger. She waited for punishment. But instead, she felt the warmth of his hand on her shoulder. His voice was calm, steady, almost gentle. "Why did you not tell me?" Her tears fell harder, soaking the marble beneath her. She shook her head, unable to answer, afraid that even words would break the fragile moment. The billionaire crouched down, his eyes no longer sharp but softened with something she had never seen before. He reached for the envelope, but instead of taking it away, he pressed it back into her trembling hands. "Take it," he said firmly. Maria's eyes widened, her chest tightening with disbelief. The mansions seemed to fade around her, the chandeliers, the marble, the golden frames. None of it mattered anymore. What mattered was the kindness she never expected, the mercy she never dreamed of. And in that moment, her heart felt heavier than ever, not with guilt, but with something even harder to carry: his trust. Her lips parted, but no words came out. The envelope burned in her hands, no longer money, but a gift too powerful to hold. She tried to speak, her voice breaking. I cannot." But the billionaire raised his hand, silencing her gently. His gaze was steady, filled with a depth she had never seen in him before. "This is not charity," he said softly. "This is what any father would do for his child." The words sank into her soul like sunlight breaking through a storm. Maria's chest heaved, every breath filled with both relief and disbelief. The grand hall, once suffocating, now seemed vast and open, filled with light. The billionaire stood and offered his hand, lifting her to her feet as though she were not a servant but something more. "You will not face this alone," he continued. "I will make sure your daughter has everything she needs." Maria clutched the envelope tighter, her tears flowing without control, each one glistening like crystal drops under the chandelier's glow. For the first time, she felt seen. For the first time, she felt human in a house that once only reminded her of her place. Her heart swelled with gratitude, too big for her fragile frame to hold. The billionaire's expression was unreadable, but his voice carried a rare softness. "Go to her tonight. Let her know she is safe." Maria nodded, unable to stop her sobbing, each tear carrying years of silent struggle. And as she turned toward the door, her steps lighter than they had ever been, she felt something stronger than relief. She felt hope reborn from the very hands she had feared most. The night air greeted her as she stepped out of the mansion, cool and gentle. It brushed against her tear-stained cheeks like a mother's touch. The stars above shimmered, scattered across the velvet sky, as if the heavens themselves were listening. Maria clutched the envelope to her chest, feeling its weight transform into life itself. Every step toward the hospital carried her faster, her shoes striking the pavement with a rhythm of urgency and faith. Her daughter's face lingered in her mind, the frail smile, the quiet strength hidden in her small body. She whispered under her breath, "Hold on, my love, hold on." The city lights blurred past her eyes, her heart racing with every passing second. She pushed open the hospital doors, the sterile scent wrapping around her like a heavy blanket. Nurses hurried through the corridors, their voices echoing faintly. But Maria heard only the pounding of her heart. Her trembling hands gripped the envelope tighter as she reached the desk. "I have the money," she breathed, her voice raw but filled with fire. The nurse looked up, startled, then softened at the sight of Maria's tearful face. "Quickly," the nurse said, motioning for the doctor. Maria's knees weakened, her body shaking from both exhaustion and relief, yet her spirit refused to collapse. She followed as they wheeled her daughter into the treatment room, her soul tethered to that small, fragile body. Through the glass window, she watched, pressing her palm against the cold surface, whispering prayers with every breath. And though fear still clung to her chest, something stronger began to bloom inside her faith. Carried by the kindness of a man she once believed had no heart, the machines beeped steadily, each sound echoing like a fragile promise. Maria's eyes never left her daughter, lying so still, surrounded by doctors and glowing monitors. Her chest tightened, each breath a struggle, as if her own life was bound to that tiny heartbeat. Fluorescent lights above flickered softly, bathing the room in a cold but steady glow. She pressed her forehead against the glass, her whispered words trembling into the silence. "My little one, please fight. Please stay with me." The hours stretched like years. Nurses moved in and out, their shoes tapping gently against the floor, their voices hushed but urgent. Maria's hands were clasped so tightly that her knuckles turned pale. She could feel the imprint of the envelope still pressed against her chest, a reminder of the man who had given her this chance. Her thoughts drifted back to the mansion, to his steady voice, to the warmth of his hand on her shoulder. She never imagined someone so powerful would lower himself to lift her. And now, because of him, hope was breathing inside these walls. Suddenly, the door opened, and the doctor stepped out. Maria's breath stopped. Her heart thrashed against her ribs as she searched his face for an answer. His expression softened, the hard lines around his eyes easing. "She is stable," he said gently. The world tilted. Her knees buckled, and tears spilled freely down her cheeks. Her hands flew to her mouth as a sob escaped, filled with both relief and gratitude. The doctor's words echoed in her ears, louder than the hum of machines, louder than her fear. "She is safe now." Maria covered her face with both hands, her body trembling as waves of relief poured through her. Her sobs filled the quiet corridor. But this time they were not cries of despair, they were cries of life. Her heart felt lighter, as if years of silent suffering had finally loosened their grip. The doctor placed a gentle hand on her shoulder, his voice steady. "You may see her now." Her eyes lifted, wide and wet, and her feet moved before her mind could catch up. Every step toward the room felt sacred, as though she was walking into a miracle. The door opened slowly, releasing a faint hum of machines and the soft rhythm of steady breathing. There she was, her little girl, lying peacefully, her chest rising and falling with the strength Maria had feared lost. The pale color in her cheeks was fading, replaced by the faintest blush of life. Maria rushed to her side, sinking into the chair, her trembling hand brushing across the girl's tiny fingers. The warmth of her skin brought fresh tears, but this time they carried gratitude, not grief. "My angel," Maria whispered, her voice breaking into the quiet room. "I am here, and you are safe." The girl's eyelids fluttered, heavy but alive, and her lips curved into the faintest, fragile smile. That smile struck Maria's heart with a force stronger than anything she had ever felt. She bent forward, pressing her forehead against her daughter's hand, whispering prayers of thanks. And in the stillness of that moment, Maria realized that kindness had saved them both, the kindness of a man she once feared, and the kindness of a love too strong to ever be broken. The steady hum of the machines became like music to Maria's ears. For the first time in years, the sound did not terrify her, it comforted her, reminding her that life was still here, breathing beside her. She lifted her head, gazing at her daughter's delicate face. Every faint movement of her lips, every small twitch of her fingers felt like a blessing. Maria leaned closer and whispered, "You are not alone, my love. I will never let you be alone again." Her daughter's tiny hand shifted, curling slightly around her mother's fingers. The touch was weak, but to Maria it was the strength of the world. Tears streamed down her face as she kissed the back of that fragile hand, again and again, as if to anchor this miracle into reality. The room smelled faintly of antiseptic, but to Maria it was the sweetest fragrance she had ever known because it was the scent of healing, the scent of hope. The weight in her chest began to loosen, replaced with a warmth that spread through her whole body. Her thoughts drifted again to the billionaire. She remembered the firmness in his voice, the unexpected softness in his eyes. He had given more than money. He had given her daughter a chance at life, and he had given Maria a reason to believe in humanity again. As she sat there, holding her daughter's hand, she made a silent promise. One day, somehow, she would repay this kindness, not with money, not with wealth, but with a loyalty and gratitude that would never fade. And as her daughter's breathing grew steadier, Maria realized that the story of their lives had just begun to change forever. The night slowly passed, and the first light of dawn slipped through the narrow hospital window. Soft golden rays touched her daughter's face, making her skin glow with warmth and life. Maria sat still, her fingers never leaving the small hand she held. Her body ached from hours of waiting, but her heart carried no weight, only peace. She watched every breath, every flicker of movement, as if they were treasures that could never be replaced. The world outside began to stir, the faint sound of birds calling, the distant hum of the city waking. But inside that room, time stood still. Maria leaned closer, whispering gently, "Rest, my little one, I am here, always." Her daughter's lips parted slightly, and a soft, almost silent word escaped. "Mother." Maria gasped, her tears returning in a rush, her hand flying to her mouth. The single word filled her chest with a warmth too strong to contain. She bent down, pressing her forehead to her daughter's, her voice trembling. "Yes, my angel, I am here." The small smile that followed was enough to shatter every shadow that had haunted her heart. In that moment, Maria knew that her child's strength was not fading, it was growing, and she knew, deep within, that none of this would have been possible without the man she once feared. Her gratitude for him was no longer just a feeling, it was a fire, bright and eternal, that would guide her every step from this day forward. Maria stayed by her daughter's side as the morning grew brighter. The nurses came in quietly, checking the machines, adjusting the tubes, whispering soft words of encouragement. Each time, they nodded with relief. Maria's heart grew lighter. Her daughter's small fingers curled more firmly around her hand now. No longer weak, but carrying a faint strength that promised recovery. Maria closed her eyes for a moment, allowing herself to breathe deeply, to let the weight of fear finally slip away. Images of the mansion returned to her mind, the marble floors, the chandelier, the envelope pressed into her hands. She saw the billionaire's face again, not as a figure of power and distance, but as a father who had understood her pain. In her heart, she whispered a prayer for him, a prayer of blessing and gratitude. Her daughter stirred, her lashes fluttering as her eyes slowly opened. Maria leaned close, her voice gentle and warm. "My angel, you are safe now." The girl blinked, her gaze wandering before it settled on her mother's face. A faint smile touched her lips, and she whispered, "I dreamed you were crying, but now you are smiling." Maria's tears flowed freely, her laughter breaking through them like sunlight after rain. "Yes, my love," she whispered, kissing her daughter's forehead. "I am smiling because you came back to me." The little girl's eyes began to close again, her body relaxing into peaceful rest. But her hand never let go of her mother's, and Maria sat there, holding that hand, her soul filled with a strength she never knew she had borne, not only from love, but from kindness given when she needed it most. The hours passed gently, marked only by the soft rhythm of her daughter's breathing. Maria remained at her side, her back aching, her eyes heavy, but her spirit unshaken. Every so often a nurse would step in, offering a reassuring smile before quietly leaving them to their silence. Maria's gaze never strayed far from her daughter's face, memorizing each delicate feature, as if afraid they might vanish. In those quiet moments, she thought of the path that had led her here, long years of labor, endless sacrifice, and finally, the desperate act of taking what was not hers. Her chest tightened at the memory. Yet the guilt was softened by the truth. She had not stolen for greed. She had stolen for love, and instead of punishment, she had received mercy that changed everything. The door creaked softly, pulling her from her thoughts. She looked up, and her breath caught. There, in the doorway, stood the billionaire. He was not dressed in power this time. No tailored suit. No cold authority, only a simple jacket. His expression calm, almost human. In its gentleness, their eyes met, and Maria felt the weight of unspoken words pressing between them. She rose from her chair, her hand still clutching her daughter's. Her lips trembled, unsure of what to say, how to thank him, how to express the ocean of gratitude swelling inside her. But before she could speak, he raised his hand lightly, as if to ease her struggle. His voice was low, steady, filled with something rare compassion. "How is she?" Maria's eyes blurred with fresh tears, her voice breaking as she whispered, "She is alive. Because of you." The billionaire stepped further into the room, his gaze settling on the fragile child lying beneath the white sheets. For a moment, the hardness that usually defined his face melted away, his eyes softened, and there was a silence that felt sacred. But Maria watched him, her heart caught between gratitude and disbelief. This was a man who owned everything. Yet he was standing here quietly, as if the only thing that mattered was the life of her daughter. "She looks strong," he said gently, almost as if speaking to himself. Maria nodded, her tears slipping silently down her cheeks. "She fought so hard, and she is still fighting." The billionaire moved closer, stopping beside the bed. The glow of morning light fell across his shoulders, softening his tall frame, making him seem less like a master of wealth and more like a father who understood pain. He glanced at Maria, his voice steady but tender. "No child should suffer for what money can solve." The words struck her like a wave, simple yet profound, carrying a truth she had never dared to hope for. Her lips quivered, her voice barely above a whisper. "You gave me back my child. I have nothing to offer you in return." The billionaire turned his gaze from the girl to Maria, his expression calm, almost kind. "You have already given me something far greater," he said quietly. Maria's brows furrowed, her breath caught. In confusion, he let his eyes linger on the fragile bond between mother and daughter, on the strength of her love that had driven her to risk everything. "You reminded me," he continued, his tone thoughtful, "that wealth means nothing without a reason to use it." Maria's heart trembled at his words, and for the first time, she realized he was not only saving her child, he was also saving a part of himself. Maria lowered her gaze, overwhelmed by the weight of his words. For years, she had believed her life was invisible, her struggles unseen in a world built for the powerful. Yet here he stood, a man who had everything, thanking her for something she had never known she could give. Her daughter stirred softly, her small hand tightening around Maria's fingers, as if to remind her that love was the only treasure that truly mattered. Maria leaned down, pressing a kiss to her daughter's forehead, her tears falling not from sorrow, but from a joy she never thought she would taste. When she looked up again, the billionaire was still watching quietly, his expression steady, touched by something deeper than words. For the first time, there was no line between master and servant. There were only two parents who understood the fragile, priceless weight of a child's life. "Thank you," Maria whispered, her voice trembling but clear. The billionaire gave a single nod, his eyes soft but resolute. "Take care of her. That is all I ask." And with that, he turned to leave, his steps quiet, his presence lingering like a shadow of kindness that would never fade. Maria watched him go, her heart full, her soul renewed. She turned back to her daughter, holding her hand tightly, whispering, "A final promise. You will grow, my angel, you will live, and you will always know that the world, though heavy, still holds hearts that choose kindness." In that small hospital room, under the soft glow of morning, a new chapter began, one born not of wealth or power, but of mercy, love, and hope that would never die.